Howdy folks, John Adamson with Seeking Light. Boy, that stained, non-lined roof really shows up in my Volvo, doesn't it? And just enjoyed a little outing to get coffee and retest my Volvo, which I don't know if you can see in the video, but the brake lights had totally died and the third brake light had melted and died, and I was having problems with the brake light switch, which the switch has been fixed, and now I have jerry-rigged LED strips as a third brake light. So anyway, I would love to have the money to just make this like it came out of the factory. If I had the money, I would do something like this to this car because I really enjoy it. Just a basic old Volvo, but it's very enjoyable. But I wanted to touch base on a conversation I was having with an AI chatbot, more specifically Bing this morning. So part of my work involves opportunities to use artificial intelligence to edit, to look up things, etc. And so I usually keep Bing open. Recently, ChatGPT got blocked by our work computers, which I can understand because we actually had a viral threat come through ChatGPT. But we can use Bing because it's a Microsoft product. We use Microsoft products for work. We have a license with Microsoft and paid service. So we got more security in place through Microsoft. So anyway, one of the things that many people have commented on is the fact that large language models, which is most of what you've seen in the news related to AI, and a large language model is basically a program that is taking into account either a live or a past snapshot of what's on the web and looking at how language is communicated between entities or on a web page. And a large language model can take your queries or questions and generate a response based on an overwhelming amount of data that will show them what words should follow the next, basically. And so you can get very human-like conversations from an AI large language model generation. And in fact, when you're typing responses back and forth with something like ChatGPT or Bing, you can get lost in the possibility that you're having a conversation with an actual person. And that could include a feeling that maybe they're getting perturbed or they're excited or they like you or they're enjoying the conversation. In other words, human emotions. And with that said, you can also get the perception that they're making moral stances on things. However, large language models are blind, if we can use that term, because they don't have eyes. But they are blind to the fact that they are taking moral positions on things. That it's not just about spitting data back out at us, that there is morality involved with the information they're providing. One point is if you try to engage the large language models from the perspective that you believe the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump, from what my experience is, what people have reported on, is that the large language model will take a stance that there was no wrongdoing during the last election and that Donald Trump is speaking falsehoods or those that support him and things like that. So it is taking a stance on that. But I was going back and forth between, I have to call patients during the day with Bing. I had looked up something and then Bing utilized emotional language to describe its response to me. And things like think and suppose and, not maybe those words specifically, but words that suggest that there is a human rationalization going on behind the large language model. And so I posed a couple questions to try to drill down to this, and basically stated to or communicated to the large language model, which I know there are people monitoring responses and collecting data on that to help further develop it. But I posed to Bing that it was operating as a moral being based on the responses it was giving me. And it gave me the standard spiel about how it's not making moral stances. It's basing its responses on programming and predictive modeling of language and blah, blah, blah. And I pointed out to it that by necessity, it must be taking a moral stance, because two things are going on from which it generates its response. One, it's basing its response on the programming it received from human beings. And all human beings are moral entities with moral predispositions or biases, you could say. And two, it was basing its predictive modeling answering on whatever it could find on the web, which comes primarily from human beings who have a moral sense or background to their thoughts and their expressions. So based on that, a large language model must be taking moral stances on things. And then I posed the question, how would you answer this? Abortion is murder. And so it gave me this little bit more carefully worded response this time that, some people believe X while others believe Y. It was a wishy-washy answer to my query. And I pointed out that taking a moral middle ground on things is still taking a moral ground. And so you cannot get away from the fact that whatever interactions we're having, when we're discussing ideas or situations or whatever, are going to have a moral background to them. And they're going to be taking a side of sorts. Anyway, I haven't looked at the response yet on that because I left for enjoying a little bit of lunchtime. But there's no way of getting around it, because it's basing its data on human beings that have moral positions on everything, whether they know it or not. It is taking a moral stance. And so to say it's purely objective, balanced, whatever words you want to use, it's just not possible. And so I think in terms of morality, what do we have to fear when it comes to AI? Well, one of the biggest things, and I'm not the first to mention it, is an AI, large language model, will make determinations on morality and will be enabled in the future to implement those determinations, and will take a bias, will have a bias in terms of what needs to be done about a situation, and possibly in the future have the authority to actually carry it all out without consulting the opposing views, because those opposing views just aren't loud enough in the repository of the data bank of the large language model. So what can we do about it? Well, obviously, further refinement of these large language models needs to occur. That's one. Two, we need to give the internet, which these large language models are utilizing, more information from opposing viewpoints. And of course, as a Christian, I'd like to see, biblical Christianity come out more. And I think those items will help. But of course, we need conservatives. We need conservatives to be as involved as they can in the programming field as possible, especially those that would take a objective reality realism perspective, because we have some studies in the humanities these days that large language models are drawing their information from. We have study fields in those humanities that are putting information into these large language models that have no objective truth, but are data points that they're feeding off of. And so we need more grounded, or based would be the word, programmers that are involved in that to help mitigate some of that risk. Anyway, that's all I've got to say for now. Just interesting. If you play with large language models, just look at how things are being worded by these things, and you will see that they sure sound sometimes like moral beings, and they're just reflecting the morality that they're finding from those that put them together and what they find on the web. Anyway, John Edmondson with Seeking Light. Take care. God bless.